The galaxy was vast, and in the far reaches of the cosmos, there were countless civilizations, some thriving, others crumbling under the weight of their ambitions. But on the planet of Kaeldra, an empire that had once stood as a beacon of power and culture was now on the verge of destruction. The once glorious Kaeldrian Empire, home to an advanced alien species known for their towering spires, vibrant cities, and unmatched intellect, was brought to ruin by a series of betrayals, wars, and political corruption. The royal family, once revered and loved by their people, had lost their grip on power. Princess Elara, the youngest heir to the Kaeldrian throne, had been raised in the shadows of that magnificent empire. The death of her parents in a brutal coup left her orphaned, and with no immediate family left to rule, the kingdom fractured into chaos. Elara, still only a young woman, was caught in the middle of the power struggle. Some saw her as the rightful heir, others saw her as a symbol of the past, an obstacle in their quest for control. As the rival factions fought for dominance, it became clear that Alicia's survival was no longer important to anyone. Her life, once filled with the luxuries of royalty, had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. With every passing day, the political intrigue grew more dangerous. Her loyal servants were few, and those who had once pledged allegiance to her family began to abandon her. Elara was left to wander the abandoned palace halls, her heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. She could no longer count on anyone. Even the people who had served her parents turned their backs, leaving her to die alone in a crumbling empire. And so, Elara fled. The palace, once full of laughter and life, became a mausoleum, a place of memory she could no longer bear. She made her way into the harsh wilderness surrounding the palace, hoping to find refuge in the unknown. The cold winds of Kaeldra pierced her delicate skin, and the biting frost made every step an arduous task. With no food, no water, and nowhere to go, the princess's life seemed to be fading with each passing moment. It was on the edge of death, her body weakened by cold and starvation, that a figure appeared on the horizon. A human. Dr. Ethan Blake was a medic who had come to Kaeldra on a humanitarian mission. His organization had been sent to assist the survivors of the Kaeldrian Civil War, providing medical care to those affected by the fighting. Ethan had been to many war-torn planets in his career, but none had left an impression on him quite like Kaeldra. The ruins of the once proud empire were haunting, and the people who remained seemed lost in a world that no longer had a place for them. When Ethan first arrived on the planet, he had heard whispers of the abandoned princess, the last heir to the throne who had vanished after her family's death. No one had cared about her fate. She was just another casualty of the war. But something inside Ethan told him he couldn't leave the planet without at least trying to find her. His heart ached at the thought of a young woman left to die alone, abandoned by everyone she had once known. He had to help. It was after weeks of searching the frozen wilderness that he finally found her. He was on a reconnaissance mission, scanning the area with his ship's sensors, when a faint signal came through. It was weak, but unmistakable. A life sign. Ethan followed it, pushing through the snowdrifts, his heart racing with each step. When he finally found Elara, her body was near lifeless, her skin pale and covered in frostbite. She was barely breathing, her once beautiful features now battered by the elements. Without a second thought, Ethan lifted her into his arms, ignoring the dangers of the planet's freezing temperatures. He knew he had to act fast if she was to survive. His mind raced as he carried her back to his ship, a safe haven where he could tend to her injuries and offer her the care she so desperately needed. As he worked to stabilize her, his thoughts drifted to the tragic fate of the princess. No one had cared for her, not even her own people. The weight of that thought settled heavily on his chest, and he vowed to do whatever it took to save her. Over the course of several days, Alicia's condition improved. Ethan worked tirelessly, treating her frostbite, administering fluids, and keeping her warm. Slowly but surely, the princess began to regain consciousness. When her eyes finally opened, she was greeted by the face of a stranger, one that had saved her life. At first, Alicia didn't know what to think. She had been abandoned, left to die, and now here was this human man, a complete stranger, who had pulled her from the brink of death. She had always been taught to distrust humans. Her people's history with them was filled with strife and prejudice. But there was something in Ethan's eyes, something genuine and kind, that told her he was different from the cold-hearted men who had abandoned her. "Who are you?" Alicia asked weakly, her voice hoarse from the cold. "My name is Ethan Blake," he replied with a soft smile. "I'm a medic. I couldn't leave you out there." For days, they remained on Ethan's ship, with Alicia slowly recovering. As she regained her strength, she and Ethan began to talk. She shared the story of her family's fall, of the empire that had crumbled, and of the betrayal that had led her to the brink of death. In return, Ethan shared his own experiences, his journey as a medic, his work in humanitarian missions, and the struggles he had faced in his own life. The more time they spent together, the more Alicia began to trust Ethan. He was nothing like the people who had betrayed her. He had saved her when no one else would, and his compassion and care began to heal the wounds not just on her body, but in her heart as well. As weeks turned into months, Alicia and Ethan grew closer. The bond between them deepened, and a love that neither of them had anticipated blossomed. Alicia, once a princess with everything at her feet, now found solace in the arms of the man who had given her a second chance at life. Ethan, who had always been focused on his work, discovered a purpose he had never known, protecting and caring for the woman he had come to love. But the reality of the situation soon became apparent. Alicia was still the rightful heir to the Kaeldrian throne, and her people, though scattered and lost, still needed her. Ethan knew he couldn't keep her to himself. As much as he loved her, Alicia had a destiny to fulfill. But Alicia, too, had changed. She had seen the true nature of humanity through Ethan's actions, compassion, loyalty, and love, and she no longer felt the weight of her royal responsibilities in the same way. Together, they made a decision. Alicia would return to Kaeldra and rebuild the empire, but she would do so with Ethan by her side as her partner. They would create a new legacy, one based on love and equality, a legacy that would heal the wounds of the past. When they returned to Kaeldra, Alicia was greeted not with the cold indifference she had expected, but with a renewed sense of hope from her people. They had longed for a leader who would lead with compassion, not one who would rule with an iron fist. And with Ethan by her side, Alicia led the Kaeldrian people into a new era of peace and prosperity. In the years that followed, Alicia and Ethan's love grew stronger. Together, they built an empire founded on justice, equality, and the lessons they had learned from their own hardships. The once abandoned princess had not only found a way to survive, but had built a future for herself and her people. Their story, the story of an orphaned alien princess saved by a human medic, became one of the galaxy's greatest tales of redemption, love, and the power of compassion.